Have you ever noticed that most people work hard their entire lives, yet only a tiny fraction ever become truly wealthy? Why is that? It's not because they're smarter. It's not because they work harder. It's because they were taught to think about money in a completely different way. In the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, author Robert Kiyosaki explains how his two fathers gave him two completely opposite sets of advice, and how those lessons shaped his financial future. One father was his biological dad, the poor dad. The other was his best friend's father, the rich dad. Today, we're going to break down what poor dad taught his son, what rich dad taught his son, and why one mindset creates employees, while the other creates owners. Make sure you stay until the end, because one idea alone could completely change how you see money forever. Let's start with poor dad's advice. Poor dad was a highly educated man. He had multiple degrees, a stable government job, and a lot of respect in society. But financially, he struggled his entire life. Here's the advice he gave his son. First, go to school. Get good grades. Poor dad believed that education was the absolute key to success. Study hard, get top marks, and earn those certificates. But the problem is, school never really teaches you how money works. It only teaches you how to work for money. Second, get a safe, secure job. For poor dad, security was everything. A steady paycheck, a government job, and a pension after retirement. That was the dream. He believed safety meant freedom, but in reality, for many people, that kind of safety just creates dependence on a single employer. Third, work hard for money. The harder you work, the more you earn. That's what poor dad believed. But this mindset traps people in a cycle where they are constantly exchanging their time for money, forever. There's a limit to how many hours you can work, which means there's a limit to how much you can earn. Fourth, avoid risks. Investing is risky. Starting a business is dangerous. Entrepreneurship is unstable. So, what did he advise? Stay safe. Avoid making mistakes. Play it small. But playing it small rarely leads to big results. Fifth, money is the root of all evil. Poor dad had a negative view of money. He believed it was a bad thing, and that rich people were just greedy. This belief, even if it's subconscious, programs people to stay poor. Because if you truly believe money is evil, why would you ever want more of it? Sixth, live below your means. Save your money. Cut your expenses. Be frugal. Now, this isn't terrible advice, but saving alone will never make you rich, especially when inflation is eating away at your savings every single year. You can't save your way to wealth. And finally, seventh, study to become an employee. Doctor, engineer, lawyer, teacher, these are all high-paying jobs, but they are still jobs. You are still working within a system someone else created. Employees work for money, and ultimately, money controls their lives. So, to sum it up, poor dad taught his son how to survive. Now, let's switch gears. Rich dad taught his son how to win. Let's look at the advice that separates the rich from everyone else. Rich dad was not highly educated in a traditional sense. He didn't have fancy degrees, but he understood money better than most university professors. Here's what rich dad taught his son. First, the rich don't work for money. This is a huge one. Instead, they make money work for them. Rich dad taught his son to learn how to build systems that generate income, even while you sleep. This is the concept of passive income. Second, financial education is more important than school grades. He stressed the importance of learning how money flows, how businesses operate, how taxes really work, and how investments grow. School teaches academic subjects, but life demands financial intelligence. Third, and this is probably the most famous lesson from the book, buy assets, not liabilities. An asset is something that puts money in your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of your pocket. It's that simple. Rich people focus on buying assets first. Poor and middle-class people tend to buy liabilities, like expensive cars or fancy homes, and they mistakenly call them assets. Fourth, use fear as a teacher, not a stopper. Everyone feels fear. The fear of losing money, the fear of failure, the fear of making mistakes. Rich Dad said, if you let fear stop you, you'll stay small your whole life. But if you learn from your fear, you will grow. Mistakes are opportunities to learn. Fifth, learn to manage money before you make more of it. Most people think if I just earn more money, all my problems would disappear. But Rich Dad said that more money only magnifies your existing financial habits. If you're bad with a little money, you'll be even worse with a lot. You have to learn to control your money first, and then you can focus on growing it. Sixth, work to learn, not to earn. When you take a job, especially early in your career, the primary goal shouldn't be the paycheck. It should be the skills you can acquire. Skills like sales, communication, leadership, investing, and business operations. Money follows skills, not the other way around. Seventh, understand taxes and corporations. This is a big one that most people miss. Employees earn money, pay taxes on it, and then live on what's left. Business owners, on the other hand, earn money, spend it on their business, and then pay taxes on whatever is left over. The rich legally reduce their tax burden by using corporations, assets, and investments. And finally, eighth, create freedom, not just income. A high salary is not the same as freedom. True freedom is when your income does not depend on your time. It's when your assets generate enough money to cover your expenses, so you don't have to work if you don't want to. So let's do a quick final comparison. Poor Dad's world was about safety, stability, employment, and a fear of failure. Rich Dad's world was about growth, ownership, acquiring assets, and learning from mistakes. When faced with an expensive purchase, Poor Dad would say, "I can't afford it," which shuts down your brain. Rich Dad would ask, "How can I afford it?" which opens your mind to possibilities, to fathers, to mindsets, to completely different financial futures. The question isn't about who was right or wrong. The real question is, which advice are you following today? If this video changed the way you think about money, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment Rich Dad below if you are choosing the path to financial freedom. Because remember, becoming rich doesn't start with having money, it starts with how you think. Thanks for watching.